Big, massive dumps.
Clean coal, meaning they're taking out coal, they're going to clean it.
Obama. Do it live.
Tolerate. Mike Pounds.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Burmecia, they say, pronounce it Burmecia, a real beautiful company.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Wednesday. We got a show for you today. Fun times for all. True Social, not doing well. Doing very badly. Merrick Garland in the hot seat. Interesting. New defense for Ginny Thomas. Fox News. Josh Hawley. That's going to be very interesting. We got Alex Jones. We're going to talk about Alex Jones.
Stilter.
That should be fun.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
Man, dude. Nobody, hey, that's not consensual. No, nobody made that consensual, the frogs. We're going to talk about that. Fun. And then, paycheck protection. Turns out, scammed. Lots and lots of fraud going on. We found fraud. This time, people stealing when it could have been people given $2,000 checks. So we're going to get into that. Fun times. All right. So before we dive into it, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Helps me out greatly if you do that. So, yep, we're going to talk about PPP scams. There's lots of issues with the PPP, the triple P. lots of triple P. All right. Anyway, S Bloom 85, Burmecia. Lots of anthropomorphic rat people there. Yes, somebody is a fan of Final Fantasy IX. A fellow dork, Final Fantasy aficionado. Thank you for bringing up that reference, because I know that. All right. Hey, if chemicals turn frogs gay, and if that's bad, why does Ashstone show for chemical dumping corporations? Very, very good question. Very, very good question. Nice. FF9 is the best on the PS1. I mean, I think FF9 is a little underrated, but it's definitely not my favorite. Although I don't know anymore. Oh, geez, that's a difficult one. All right, I know, like, everybody's gonna be like, oh, it's seven, obviously 7. I don't know, 7 was good. I really like 7, but I don't know. I mean, we could go talk about we could just make the whole show ranked Final Fantasy games, but I don't think we're gonna go in that direction. Not today, because we do actually have some news to get through. And so, ask Andrea, which is her favorite. Actually, honestly, my favorite out of all the games, just to get on a little bit of a tangent, I really enjoyed 6, which in the United States was branded 3, because, yeah. I really liked 6. Lots of characters, lots of story, a clown literally becoming God. That's interesting. The court jester going to godhood. That's a fun that's a fun story. So I don't know. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that one. That was on the Super Nintendo back in the olden days, and in the ancient times. Heresy. What are you talking about? Heresy. Ask you about Super Nintendo. I'll sweep you off your feet. Hey, look, I had a Super Nintendo. I enjoyed it. And look, I remember the Nintendo days. Yeah. Back in those days, when my friend, I would watch him play Final Fantasy, the original, the OG, back in the day. So, But yeah, I've played a lot of them. All right, anyway. I still enjoy Super Nintendo. There are good emulators out there that I may or may not have used. I don't know. I'm getting stun locked here. I'm stun locked. Well, let's go. Let's dive in. All right, we're gonna go to True Social.
Internets.
All right, this is already the best episode this year. ColecoVision. Okay. One more thing. Since we're going down memory lane here, I don't remember what it was called. I think it was like Intellivision. I think. Where you had like a, how do I explain this? It was like a sort of semi-transparent plastic sheet with stuff on it that you would tape to your TV. I don't know if it would you literally taped it on there, but you would stick it to your TV when you wanted to play. And then you'd have the joysticks, because all it was a joystick and a button. And then you would move a dot through the game on the plastic sheet. I remember that. Man. It was like a wax paper. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Was it called Odyssey? I remember it was a Magnavox Odyssey. 'Cause I remember my dad bringing one home and us trying it. That's interesting because that was a long time ago. A long time ago. Man, am I old. Jesus Christ. All right, anyway. Let's move on. We're talking about the old, the console wars. Yes. Back in the ancient times, before dinosaurs roamed the earth. All right. Let's go. Let's go to Pump and Dump. Pump and Dump. Fun. It appears that another Trump venture has failed. The platform known as Truth Social, also known as Twitter for people who got kicked off Twitter, has imploded. It has fallen off a cliff. According to The Wrap, the much-touted social media app has only managed to gain about 1.2 million downloads. So you might say, well, 1.2 million, that's pretty good, right? The vast majority of those were on launch day. About 800,000 downloads reached within the first couple of days. Since then, absolute nosedive. Nosedive. According to the estimate for this week in the download reports, the social media app may only be downloaded approximately 60,000 times. 60,000. Speaking to The Wrap, Stephanie Chan, a mobile insight strategist for Sensor Tower, offered insight explaining how badly the social media platform's downloads have plummeted. This is down 93% from launch week, when it saw 872,000 installs during the week of February 21st. We estimate that Truth Social has so far reached approximately 1.2 million installs since its launch. Now, installs is one thing, right? So you could download the app, and I think we've all done this. You can download an app and then just never use it. And in the case of Truth Social, why would you? Because it's a ghost town. There's nobody there. And so, of course, there's very little data to determine how many individuals are actually using the app after signing up. Per The Wrap, quote, on its desktop site, Truth Social has also seen a significant decline in traffic following the launch period. TruthSocial.com spiked to 6 million visits during the week of February 20th, but has dropped to around 1.9 million weekly visits in recent weeks, according to SimilarWeb. The App Store download page visits also declined from 361,000 visits during launch week to some 90,000 weekly visits last week. So, fun. Absolute nosedive. Gone. Truth Social, not doing so well. And that is the truth. All right. That's not fake news. Now, here's the thing. So I think I'm going to do something that's incredibly unfair. I'm going to compare it to Twitter. Now, Twitter's a little strange. They do this thing where they only track what they call monetizable active users. It means they're making money off you, right? Now, even then, they had 37 million active daily users in just the United States alone. Worldwide, about 217 million. That's active users. The last published figure regarding monthly active Twitter users actually amounted to about 330 million before the company decided to discontinue reporting on that metric. So now, again, I mentioned that it might not be fair to make the comparison with Twitter. Why? Well, Twitter's been around for a very long time, to be fair. They're a huge company. They've been a huge company. Truth Social is a startup. It's very new, and it's headed up by Devin Nunes, who couldn't win a lawsuit against a fictional cow, and yet attempted to sue said fictional cow and said fictional mom. Yes, suing somebody called Devin Nunes' mom on Twitter to try to reveal them. It didn't work. It failed. All right. Win. Now, but look, when it comes down to it, when you look, has Donald Trump even said anything about Truth Social since it launched? He hasn't posted anything there. His first post is the only post on Truth Social. So he doesn't spend time there. He doesn't advertise this. You don't see Truth Social being advertised essentially anywhere. And so nobody uses it. And if nobody uses it, they don't make any money, obviously, and nobody signs up. And so, again, Trump doesn't care about this, doesn't talk about it, doesn't use it, doesn't promote it, and there's just no reason to be there. In fact, earlier this month, a Republican digital strategist talked to Politico about this, saying, quote, other than Trump, what makes the platform compelling enough to come back over and over again? How is it any different than Twitter and Parler? Well, to be fair, Truth Social, I mean, look, Parler and Twitter, they're not a obvious cash grab. And again, when you're talking about Truth Social and actually what drives people to be there, well, you have to have a reason to be there, right? And there is no reason. I mean, and here's the thing. There's no compelling reason to be there. If you're a so-called free speech site, well, what happens? It gets filled with Nazis, and Nazis will do Nazi shit. And so now Nazi shit turns people off. Nobody's going to go there if your site's full of Nazis. And so obviously you have to have some rules, but if you put in some rules to keep out the Nazis, well, then you can't really bill yourself as a free speech site. You're saying, well, I have a little bit of rules. I got to keep out the Nazis. And so we're going to have a no Nazi policy. Well, now we're not really free speech. And so, look, without, being explicitly free speech and opening it up to the Nazis, how are they different than anyone else? Because everyone else also has a no Nazi policy. And so that's it. And by the way, this is a Twitter clone. And so the other thing is, okay, if you're going to succeed and actually do something and bring people to your site, well, they have to have a reason, right? Like an additional functionality. Now, for example, remember MySpace? Anybody remember MySpace? They actually allowed you to put like music and fun stuff on your MySpace page. That brought in a lot of people. Facebook, I honestly don't know what Facebook did to bring in all these people, but now Facebook's dominant, and there it is. I mean, they provided some sort of functionality that MySpace didn't. Now, of course, interestingly enough, people want MySpace back. Hey, I don't blame them, right? But all right, the question is then, why would anyone want to use an empty Twitter clone if you could just use Twitter? Now, Donald Trump can't use Twitter, even though he can't use Twitter, he still doesn't use Truth Social. And so, look, that's why this is just a complete and utter disaster. The only thing that it was there for is a pump and dump scheme. All right? And so all these early investors into this company, they got in good. They bought the stock low. And now, look, they bought the stock low, it increased in value, and then dropped back in value. But it's still going to be higher, I think, than when they bought in because they got a special discount. So what are they going to do as soon as they're able to do so? They're going to dump the stock, and they're going to walk away with millions of dollars. So there it is. That's the essential scheme of a pump and dump. And, well, that's what Truth Social actually is. All right. So let's go to something a little bit more serious. I think some of you might appreciate this one. Members of the January 6th Select Committee have a message for the Justice Department under Merrick Garland. Do your job. Now, on Monday evening, the panel's members went off over the agency's inaction after making 2 more criminal referrals against former Trump aides Dan Scavino and Peter Navarro. Now, both of whom, of course, played an alleged part in the former president's failed election coup. The Department of Justice had a duty to act on this referral and others that we have sent, says Representative Adam Schiff of California. Without enforcement of congressional subpoenas, there is no oversight, and without oversight, no accountability for the former president or any other president, past president or future. Without enforcement of its lawful process, Congress ceases to be a co-equal branch of government. Other members, including Representative Zoe Lofgren, Liz Cheney, Elaine Luria, also joined, suggesting that the DOJ was abdicating their duties. Luria said, quote, Attorney General Garland, do your job so we can do ours. So look, what is the job? What's his job? It's to carry out the law, right? Well, here we have members of Trump's inner circle that are literally in contempt of court, of Congress. They refuse to testify. They refuse to hand over documentation requested by the January 6th committee. They refuse to take this seriously. And it's because of Merrick Garland's weakness in the face of these developments, of these new developments in the panel's investigation. In fact, on top of Scavino-Navarro's referrals, the committee announced plans to sit down with Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, according to ABC News. Panel has also requested an interview with prominent right-wing activist Ginny Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, because of her personal and significant involvement in the plot to have the election brought before the Supreme Court so that her husband could rule on it. And on Monday, a federal judge ruled that it was more likely than not Trump and right-wing attorney John Eastman committed multiple felonies. The illegality of the plan was obvious, wrote Judge David O. Carter of the Central District of California. Our nation was founded on a peaceful transition of power, epitomized by George Washington laying down the sword to make way for democratic elections. Ignoring this history, President Trump vigorously campaigned for the vice president to single-handedly determine the results of the 2020 election. Add into that, we have nearly 8 hours of missing call logs on January 6th, which suggested that Trump was communicating with his allies using burner phones or back channels while the Capitol building was under attack, while people were literally in the building chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." Interesting. Now, look, Trump, we know from stuff that was released to the January 6th committee that Trump spoke to Bannon twice that day. Steve Bannon, of course, along with Peter Navarro, had planned the Green Bay sweep. That was to basically with the goal of illegally keeping Donald Trump in power. Trump that day also spoke to Pence to pressure him not to certify the election. And again, all of this we know from the committee, and yet the DOJ does absolutely nothing. Just nothing. In fact, in a Monday Washington Post op-ed, columnists Greg Sargent and Paul Waldman argued this, quote, "It is hard to see how the Justice Department can tenably refrain from a full criminal investigation into whether Trump broke laws in connection with January 6th. They added not doing the investigation at all would mean the legal system doesn't even attempt to answer a fundamental question here. Whether Trump's extraordinarily corrupt effort to subvert our political order amounts to criminality to the degree that it's obviously warranted." Now, if they are indeed correct, and Merrick Garland just isn't doing an investigation at all, doesn't plan on it, well then, I mean, the rule of law is gone. And then our country, of course, follows with it. Now remember, they want to turn, the far right wants to turn this country into a fascist theocracy. I've talked about this all the time. Fundamentalist Christianity, right? To be the law of the land, essentially. You have, Donald Trump as king of the United States, punishing his political enemies by throwing them in prison. Lock her up. And then making everyone else in government kiss his ass. And look, this is not an exaggeration. Donald Trump has always been about power, his own ego. and having control. The guy, went out and praised Kim Jong-un and thought, oh man, I really wish, do you see how the people have to come out and actually applaud Kim Jong-un when he walks into a room? I want that. Yeah, that's because if they don't, they get killed. They get murdered. And so, look, I don't think Donald Trump cares for what reason they cheer him when he walks into a room. He just wants them to cheer. And so this is a dangerous person, a very dangerous person, and he is supported by other very dangerous people. Again, people like Steve Bannon. And by the way, Steve Bannon, and this is something that I've been looking into, really. Steve Bannon has embraced something called Duginism. Now, I don't know if a lot of you have heard about Duginism, but basically it's a political philosophy espoused by Alexander Dugin. So Alexander Dugin is a Russian philosopher, who is seeking to create a traditionalist Christian empire rooted in conservative Orthodox Christian values and white supremacy. The guy literally wants to bring us back to the Dark Ages. Medieval. And so he's like, oh yeah, the medieval times, well, they were illiberal, and so therefore, that's what we want to go back to. We don't like Western liberal democracy. So, I mean, that's scary. Look, the Washington Post reported back in 2019 that there are clear connections between Dugin and other prominent right-wing figures in the United States. His works have been translated by Arctus Media, which proudly claims that he has served as an advisor to Vladimir Putin. He shares ties to Richard Spencer, white nationalist, and his wife, Nina Koporianova, who has translated some of Dugin's works into English. Additionally, there are connections between Dugin and David Duke, well-known racist, Milo Yiannopoulos, Stephen Miller, who was high up in Trump's administration, and even Trump himself. Again, they are against Western liberal democracy. And so, look, let me ask you, if you think that our very form of government is the enemy, well, then why would it matter if you break laws in order to try to usher that in, to get a form of government you want? And that's and I say that because it's Steve Bannon who was pushing this. Steve Bannon, along with Dugin, along with many on the far extremist right that believe in this. Now, understand that what January 6th wasn't just a riot. That was a part of it. Understandably, people focus on this, right? What it was, in reality, was a pretty big effort to try to end the United States Western democracy. I mean, again, you had hundreds of people. You had Republican congressmen that were trying not to certify the election. You had fake electors in many different states. You had right-wing media figures. You had Giuliani and others that are launching court challenges on the election, all in order to pressure Mike Pence and Republicans to overturn the results of an election and to reinstall Donald Trump as president of the United States. That's it. And so that's what it was. Now, if Merrick Garland either refuses to see that this as the threat of which it is, right? And look, the reason I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt of not realizing this is because the government has failed in so many different accounts, so many different times, to recognize the far right as a threat. And of course, you can go and you can blame, for example, in January 6th, you can blame the FBI for not acting on actual intelligence, saying that there's going to be violence on January 6th. They ignored it because, well, it's the right wing. Oh, they're never going to do violence. No, we're actually worried about Antifa, and we're worried about Black Lives Matter. That's the real problem. No. They constantly and consistently ignore right-wing authoritarian movements in this country. And so either Merrick Garland is continuing that sad tradition of underestimating the far right, or worse, is either scared or complicit in not going after, members of, the group that tried to overthrow the election and our democracy on January 6th. And well, I mean, look, if he doesn't do something, right, and actually go after people for the crimes committed, the conspiracy to defraud the American people, for Trump, for obstruction of justice and everything else, well, then the country's basically over. We've got no laws left. And so I agree with the January 6th Commission in saying, Merrick Garland, either do your goddamn job or get the fuck out. Make way for someone who will. Elected politicians trying to bend democracy is kind of ironic. Well, I mean, that's how it always happens, though, right? I mean, look at what happened in Germany. Kind of a normal move. Get into power and then usurp it. Use that power to try to keep power. All right, let's go to Josh Hawley. Senator Josh Hawley is using a curious new defense for the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Take a look.
Clarence Thomas's wife has opinions. Is she not free to express them? I think it would be natural for people that are dating, people that are married. There probably are a number of issues people disagree on, a number of issues they agree on. If that's the case, if that's the standard now Democrats want to set, wouldn't that apply to Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and the laptop? And wouldn't Joe equally have to be impeached himself or recused as they're trying to do to Clarence Thomas?
Yeah, I look forward to all of the calls for Joe Biden's resignation from all of these Democrats on exactly the same logic. Here's the bottom line. This is ridiculous, these attacks on Justice Thomas, and the idea that Ginny Thomas, his wife, is supposed to sign off on her texts and on her work with her husband as if he's in charge of her in some way. Isn't that misogyny? Isn't that exactly what the Democrats are always saying that they're against?
Well, hold on here. It feels like there's a lot of stretching going on here. It's almost like watching a yoga class going on here. Oh yeah, stretch, gonna stretch here. It's sexism. Oh yeah. Oh, it's just an opinion. Just an opinion. Whoa, getting a little limber here now. All right, let's go. Let's go with the obvious question. What's misogynistic about this? At all? Look, it's not just that Ginny Thomas had opinions. No, you can have opinions, of course. No, it's not just about having opinions, right? What she was doing is actively strategizing with the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, on how to overturn the election results. That's not just an opinion, that's actually doing something. All right? In fact, here are some of the texts. Quote, help this great president stand firm. You are the leader, Mark, with him who is standing for America's constitutional government at the precipice. The majority knows that Biden and the left is attempting the greatest heist of our history. And of course, had been pushing for Mark Meadows to try to pressure Mike Pence, to try to pressure the rest of the Republicans into overturning the election results. Meadows wrote to Ginny Thomas 2 weeks later saying, quote, this is a fight of good versus evil. Evil always looks like the victor until the King of Kings triumphs. Do not grow weary in well-doing. The fight continues. I have staked my career on it. Well, at least my time in D.C. on it. She also, of course, invoked QAnon relating to Trump and watermarked ballots. She had also lobbied Meadows and possibly Jared Kushner as well. And for what? What did she want to do? She wanted to make Sidney Powell, the crackpot Kraken lawyer, the face of Donald Trump's efforts. To do what now? To bring these cases to the Supreme Court. Now, why would you want to bring that to the Supreme Court? That's very interesting. But hey, no, these were just opinions. Yes, just opinions. But no, not just opinions. She was using her influence, i.e. having her husband on the Supreme Court, to push the Trump campaign and to bring that case in front of her husband. Well, I would think that that's a little bit more consequential than just having an opinion. And look, when you look at what happened in the Supreme Court, how Clarence Thomas ruled in cases that he should not have ruled on, should have recused himself from, it's pretty clear what's going on. He repeatedly participated in cases that went to the court directly or indirectly involving election results. There is a conflict of interest. And to show how he may have been influenced, one of the court's recent decisions in January, which required that Trump's White House records, the White House records that went to the January 6th committee, some of them including these texts, be turned over to the House committee at the Capitol. There was one justice that disagreed with this. You want to guess who that was? Clarence Thomas. Well, gee, if he had no idea that her texts and her involvement would be involved or uncovered, why did he vote against releasing the records? Why would he vote against that? Very curious indeed. But no. Sean Hannity wants you to believe that this is just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. And Hawley, he wants you to believe that it's sexism. Sexism. Now, it's obviously neither. No, what this is that Justice Clarence Thomas has a clear conflict of interest, trying to protect his wife. Now, they also wanted you to tie this into Hunter Biden, to think that this is the same thing as Hunter Biden. Now, Hunter Biden's been a very naughty boy. We have talked about this. Now, it would be a conflict of interest. It would be something that would be bad if the president, or at the time the Vice President Biden, had been personally involved in trying to protect Hunter Biden. But he didn't. Now, it would also be a conflict of interest if Joe Biden were to make favorable policy positions and push favorable policy in regards to the people that were paying Hunter Biden. Notably, Chinese, Ukrainians. Now, do we have any evidence of that? No. And let me get into the details in this. This to be very clear. Now, the Washington Post recently reviewed Hunter Biden's financial arrangement with CEFC China Energy and confirmed some key details, as well as located additional documents showing Biden family interactions with Chinese executives. Now, the Post, however, did not find any evidence that Joe Biden personally benefited or knew details about the transactions with CEFC, which took place after he had left the vice presidency and before he had announced his intention to run for the White House in 2020. So basically when he was a regular citizen, a citizen, just a normal person. So what that seems like is less Joe Biden profited from Hunter Biden's connections with the Chinese and more of Hunter Biden using his name and whatever political clout comes from that in order to make some money. Is that bad? Yeah, you could argue that it's bad. Is it illegal? No. Unfortunately not. Now, if there was, again, actual evidence that Joe Biden was profiting off this deal personally, and he's not, or making policy decisions based on his son's work, then that would be an ethical issue for a vice president or president, and that would be an issue. Now, another issue, if President Biden stepped in to stop these investigations, or to speak out against him, or tried to influence those investigations, or did obstruction of justice, well, then again, those would be huge issues, right? None of those things have happened as far as we know. None of that's happened. Again, Hunter may be a bad boy, but in this case, it's got nothing to do with his dad. And so why would Joe Biden have to step down as a result of what Hunter Biden did that has no connection to him? So again, the situation with Ginny Thomas is different because we're not talking about guilt by association, right? In this case, being a family member. What it is, it's the fact that he was ruling on cases involving his wife in order to protect her. What he should have done is recused himself because of that conflict of interest, but he did not. In fact, Charles Gay, a legal ethics professor at the University of Indiana in Bloomington, said this about this case, quote, "There's a difference between having a spouse who has an active interest in seeing the law changed and someone who is actually part of the story of the case." Look, I think that's a very good point. Because you do have political figures who have spouses or family members that might be activists and are like, oh, I want to get this law changed. I want to get this law changed. Now, does that present a clear conflict of interest? Not necessarily, no. Because again, while they have their opinions, right, and while they have an active interest, you don't have that other family member who does have a position of power helping them or hiding things for them, right? And so again, here's what Charles said, quote, "I don't know how someone could be impartial when their spouse is part of the record that may be before the judge." Gay notes that the federal recuser statute requires the judge to step aside when he or she has knowledge of disputed facts of the case. And Ginny Thomas's texts were part of the larger factual record that was produced pursuant to the January 6th committee's subpoena. Now, again, he didn't do that. Thomas did not recuse himself, and there's really no way to make him do that. There's actually no way to compel him because the court has no ethical rules. Isn't that amazing? For one, the Supreme Court doesn't actually have ethics laws that they have to follow. The Supreme Court has made it clear that it considers the judicial code of conduct as guidance that it tries to follow, but is not obligated to do so, and that each justice decides for him or herself when they should recuse. So he doesn't have to. The only thing that they can do is try to impeach a judge. And so, look, Clarence Thomas is not even required to recuse in these cases. And since he didn't, he's not going to get in trouble for it. That's really messed up. And so if you know this system, why would you ever recuse? Why wouldn't you do what Clarence Thomas did? When you can absolutely get away with it, you're not going to get in trouble for it. And so what this is, basically, they're rubbing it, he's rubbing it in your face, in a way, by not recusing. Oh yeah, I tried to hide my wife's embarrassing texts. Where she helps, try to overturn an election. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Anything? Anything? No, there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. And yet, here, Sean Hannity and Josh Hawley, they're going out there just to stretch themselves into pretzels over something that does look pretty bad. And of course, doing so by trying to distract you with Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden has nothing to do with this case. It has nothing to do, it's a different situation. And so, otherwise, all this boils down to really is this a gigantic stretch and distraction away from what is really disastrous. All right, let's go to the Sandy Hook families. 13 parents of the children who died in the 2012 Sandy Hook mass shooting have rejected the latest offer from Alex Jones. So now this is a settlement offer in this case that he lost. Now, he lost in a default judgment. So he decided not to show up to court, not to give any of the documents, and so the judge, of course, ruled against him. Now, Jones, to prevent any further, I guess, litigation or from litigation from continuing, decided to offer each plaintiff the vast sum of $120,000 for his horrible lies that he made up about them. Now, remember, this guy, Alex Jones, lied for years and years about these families, calling the whole thing a hoax, a false flag, saying the worst things about them, saying the kids were crisis actors, acting in front of a green screen. They're not really dead. No, they're not really dead. And if that's not bad enough, his unhinged followers began stalking these families. One of them had to move like 3 times because they would get threatened, stalked, doxxed, verbally abused, threatened. And that's not the final insult. No. $120,000 and an apology, a half-hearted apology. Chump change. Total chump change. There is no amount of money that can undo the years of damage, psychological damage done by Alex Jones. And that's on top of the fact that their children are dead. And this guy spread the most vicious, disgusting lies about these families, slap in the face. And so, yes, you had the families that got together unanimously and rejected his pathetic offer. In fact, in court filings, they said this, that the offer was a transparent and desperate attempt by Alex Jones to escape a public reckoning under oath with his deceitful, profit-driven campaign against the plaintiffs and the memory of their loved ones lost at Sandy Hook. The family sued Jones in a Connecticut court in 2018 for repeatedly claiming on air that the shooting was a giant hoax to advance gun control and won a default judgment. The settlement offer in the Connecticut case came from Jones personally and a constellation of companies associated with him, like Free Speech Systems, InfoWars Health, and Prison Planet TV. It also included something approaching an apology from Jones, reading in full, Mr. Jones extends his heartfelt apology for any distress his remarks caused. Any distress? No, are you fucking kidding me? Really? No, he's not sorry at all. And again, he's trying to buy them off super, super cheap. I mean, do you guys know how rich Alex Jones is? According to court documents, Jones' InfoWars store, just in 3 years, between the years of 2015 and 2018, made $165 million. Let me tell you, you got to sell a lot of Brain Force Plus to make $165 million in 3 years. Now, that is not to be confused with Brain Force Ultra. They're different. In fact, one's got 20% more brain. Now, the point is, this guy's making bank by coming up with insane conspiracy theories that are harming real people. And of course, unfortunately for him, that harm in the real world from these conspiracies, again, devastating harm for these families, and they decided to fight back. Real people have had to answer for the things that Alex Jones has said and the things that he has spurred his followers on to do. And so he's got to answer for that. And I'm sorry, but $120,000 per person ain't going to do it. All right. Do we have time? Well, this is going to be a big story. All right. During the pandemic, the government gave out billions of dollars in loans to businesses with very little oversight in the Paycheck Protection Program. It turns out that not having very much oversight leads to a lot of fraud. I know, who would have figured, right? Who would have known? Now, look, the program was meant to try to protect people's jobs and allowed companies to apply for these loans, which would then be forgiven if the companies didn't fire people. Why do that instead of paying everybody at least $2,000 a month in stimulus payments to stay home? I'll never understand. I mean, they would rather funnel this money through corporations and through applications and millions, actually billions of dollars in loans, instead of just pay people to stay home for a few months. I mean, it really does show you how broken of a country we are. Nonetheless, right, this led to fraudsters jumping into this and stealing billions of dollars and using it to buy luxury cars, mansions, private jets, flights, and fancy vacations, of course. So now, how much money was stolen? Experts say that the theft could be as much as $80 billion, or about 10% of the $800 billion put to that program. That's on top of the $90 billion to $400 billion believed to have been stolen from the $900 billion COVID unemployment relief program, which, by the way, now here's the thing. There are reports where you had certain states, and I forget which state it was, that accidentally overpaid people for unemployment benefits. Now, these are people that were honest. There was no fraud there. They just said, look, we lost our job due to COVID, and they got unemployment benefits. And then the state sent them too much. That same state is now saying, oh, by the way, you have to pay that back now. But wait a minute. You gave us that money. You messed up. It was your mistake. We thought that we were getting extra money in order to help us out because we legitimately signed up. We didn't lie or fabricate anything on our application. And yet still, now you're asking us to pay back this money that we thought was ours legitimately. And in some cases, it's in the tens of thousands of dollars. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And normal people are now on the hook. And yet, of course, here you have this massive amount of fraud. Well, they're not getting a lot of this money back. Now, so let me go into that, right? So now, half of that money, by the way, for unemployment, allegedly taken by international fraudsters. As NBC News reported last year, and another $80 billion potentially taken from a separate COVID disaster relief program. Most of those losses are considered unrecoverable. Unrecoverable. So that's why they're going after regular people, by the way, because those are the ones that are recoverable, apparently. All right. Now, Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz, who oversees COVID relief spending, told NBC Nightly News anchor Lester Holt in an interview that COVID relief programs were structured in ways that made them ripe for this kind of abuse. In fact, the SBA, he said, in sending that money out, basically said to people, apply and sign and tell us that you're really entitled to money. And of course, for fraudsters, that's an invitation. What didn't happen was even minimal checks to make sure that the money was getting to the right people at the right time. Now, remember, this was started under the Trump administration, who didn't believe in oversight. And so, yeah, they basically said, we're going to get this out as fast as possible to these businesses, but we're going to sit on the stimulus checks, of course. But we're going to send this out to businesses, corporations, as fast as possible. And you're not surprised that some people will take advantage of this to get free money? Now, experts say that millions of borrowers inflated their numbers of employees or created companies just out of whole cloth that didn't actually exist. And for much of 2020, the lenders of this money did very little to verify applications, prosecutors and experts say, in part because Congress required the SBA, which ran the program, to issue explicit guidance that in the interest of getting the money out fast, lenders will be harmless for borrowers' failure to comply with program criteria. So basically, man, we're just going to throw this money out. You say you got a business, here you go. Have all this money. Now, that's despite numerous warnings by the Government Accountability Office. The program was ripe with fraud, and yet they continued to make loans. Go ahead. Here you go. In fact, according to Haywood Telco, CEO for government at LexisNexis Risk Solutions, which works with the government to verify identity, said, quote, the government spent approximately $800 billion and provided 21 million loans to individuals. The basic scheme was really simple. People went on state websites, took the names of existing businesses, or registered new fake ones. There's absolutely no security on there. There's no validation of any information. And voila, you have company ABC with 40 employees and a payroll of $10 million. And you go and apply for a PPP loan, it was a piece of cake. And in one case, they had found that a phone number for a gas station in Houston was used for 150 loan applications. Jesus. Now, I'm not going to surprise you here by pointing out one of the states with the most fraud. Florida. Florida, big surprise. Shocker. All right, so now Miami DA Juan Gonzalez of the Southern District of Florida said he had seen a lot of fraud in Florida, including billions stolen from the federal Medicare program. You can thank Rick Scott for some of that. But he said that he had never seen so much get stolen so quickly. Wow. Now, look, he said what sucks about this is that unlike unemployment, which went to every person who was qualified, lenders had to stop making PPP loans when the money ran out, even though there was demand. And so, look, at the end of the day, the fraud didn't just harm the taxpayer, didn't just steal taxpayer money. It actually hurt people, legitimate businesses who did need the money, but went to apply, and there was none left. Again, there were plenty of small businesses that were in desperate need, that had a legitimate need for the money, that were not lying on those applications, but since the money was gone from the crooks, and that includes, by the way, big corporations who got on this and took that money, even though they didn't fit the criteria, there was no oversight. These giant corporations took that money too, leaving none for actual people that need it. So now let me give you some examples of some of the more prolific small fraudsters, like David Hines. David Hines, 29 of Miami, admitted to a fraud scheme that netted him $3.9 million. According to his guilty plea, Hines, who said in court papers that he struggled with addiction, bought a $318,000 Lamborghini Huracan and also spent thousands in luxury hotels, jewelry, clothing, and dating sites. Fun. Also in Miami, a man and a woman admitted to a complex scheme in which, among other things, they claimed they were operating farms in the middle of a city out of single-family homes. There were no farms. The farms were fake farms. In another Florida case, prosecutors charged a man that they say he used proceeds from a $7.2 million emergency loan to buy a 12,579 square foot mansion, a Lincoln Navigator, a Maserati, and a Mercedes Benz. I need that emergency Mercedes, guys. A California couple were also convicted in June of stealing $18 million, of which they bought 3 houses, diamonds, gold coins, luxury watches, expensive furniture, and other valuables, prosecutors said. And just as they were about to be sentenced, they fled. They cut off their ankle bracelets, ran off, left their kids behind, and ran to Montenegro. They just left the kids. Hey, kid, you're on your own. Here, take some money. Yeah, here's $100. Go fuck off. Parent of the year. Holy shit. Just let the kids. They were captured back in February. The man was sentenced to 17 years in prison and his wife 6 years. Wow. Now what's interesting about this is that these people, and it really does show the disparities in the U.S. justice system when it comes to crime, but also financial crime. See, none of these people were held in jail before their sentencing. They weren't held in pretrial detention. They were able to bond out. Either that or they just, oh, you're not a flight risk. You're white and you made financial crimes. But if you compare that to, like, I don't know, stealing a candy bar from a store, right? Petty crimes, having a fake $20 bill. Can you think of any stories where somebody might have had, a fake 20 getting in trouble? Oh, yeah, that's right. George Floyd, who was murdered over it. Eric Garner, murdered over selling loose cigarettes. Technically, I guess a crime. No, people go to prison for very, very small amounts of money, of theft, right? They can't bond out. No, they can't do that. But if you steal millions of dollars from the government, defraud the taxpayer, well, then you don't even go to jail waiting for your sentence. Two-tier justice system in this country. I mean, you steal millions of dollars. Who cares? Defraud the taxpayer all you want. But no, you do a small petty crime, you could die. That's insane. This is the country that we live in. There's more. Washington, D.C. resident Elias Eldabaugh, who appears to have no criminal record, was charged last summer with trying to steal $17 million from PPP and another program. According to his LinkedIn page, he earned a degree in computer engineering from California State, Sacramento, and has worked in various tech jobs, so he's a tech bro. Among the property prosecutors seized was a Tesla Model 3. He had been released on his own recognizances as he awaited trial, but guess what? He decided to defraud a bank. A bank. Hey, he was out on his own recognizances. Totally fine. Oops, defrauded a bank. What are you going to do? But at least he's not a black guy selling Lucy's. Those are the most dangerous people. There's more. Danielle Miller. Super brazen about this, by the way. Her charging documents say that she stole identifying information from Massachusetts state website and used the information to apply for COVID relief funds. In 40 minutes, she had received about $100,000 in taxpayer money. Not very much, but court documents say that she soon booked a private jet from Florida to California, where she spent $5,500 at a luxury hotel in West Hollywood. And she decided, like all smart criminals do, to post that trip to her Instagram, her 34,000 Instagram followers. Miller's criminal record includes arrests in 5 different states, many of which were related to larceny and identity-related fraud, the complaint in the case says. She even participated in a recent profile in New York Magazine that portrayed her as a child of wealthy Manhattan parents whose life was derailed by the circulation of an explicit video when she was young. She said this in the magazine. This is a quote. Honestly, I more so consider myself a con artist than anything. You know how they have that saying that you can sell ice to an Eskimo? There's something that I want. If there's something that I want, I'm getting it. Look, Heinz got 6 years in prison. The fraudulent farmers got 18 and 30 months, respectively. But the vast majority of people who stole from this program, millions of dollars, billions in total. They're never going to find them. They're never going to find them. Prosecutors and government officials, they're like, look, I don't think we're ever going to find all the fraud. Honestly, here's what Gonzalez said, quote, I think there's going to be a percentage that we probably will never catch. But we're working as hard as we can to catch as many as we can. And of course, they cited the fact that they don't have funding to be able to. The departments don't actually have funding to go after these high-level financial crimes. And so, of course, and that's a problem all across the United States, right? They don't go after rich people. They don't go after high-dollar crime. What they do is that they go after the low-level crime, the lowest level people, the ones who are the most powerless to fight back because they don't have the resources. That's a sad state in this country. Very, very sad state of this country. In fact, only about 178 people have been convicted so far in PPP fraud. This is according to the Justice Department. They say that more prosecutions are coming, but they admit that it's only going to be a small fraction of the total fraud. Now, how is this allowed to happen? I mentioned it earlier. Talco also mentions it. He says, look, they could have prevented this, the government and the lenders, but the Trump administration said, no, we got to get it out fast. In fact, Talco said he spoke to Larry Kudlow, then the top economic advisor to President Trump, and said, quote, I explained to him that this was going to be the biggest fraud in the history of our country. And then I was told that you can either have speed or you can have security. And that they'd rather just have speed. Well, I mean, that's what it is. That's what they did. We'd rather have speed in getting the money out to corporations, i.e. our donors, than actually have security to prevent people from stealing billions of dollars in taxpayer money. Talco said he told Kudlow that banks do have that ability to rapidly identify customers, but they didn't. They didn't. Kudlow, unsurprisingly, did not respond to requests from comment. Now, there was an official who works on COVID relief, but was not authorized to speak publicly, acknowledged that Talco was correct, saying that in the early stages of the loan program, he said there were few controls, but it didn't have to be that way. I agree, he said, that the notion that you had to sacrifice certainty for speed is categorically false. So this was not an oversight. No, this was the administration saying, yeah, of course this is ripe for fraud, but we don't care. We don't give a shit. We're just going to put this out there, and if they're going to steal the money, they're going to steal the money. Not my problem. Not my problem. That's all they think of our government as. Just a vending machine for money. That's it. Hey, you give us money. We're rich. Our donors say, we want the money now. And they say, yes, sir. Yeah, oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. We're going to give you all the money that you want. A little oversight, go ahead. Big corporations dip in? Absolutely. Yes. Does it make way for small-time fraudsters? Yes. By the way, they're the ones that are getting caught, are getting in trouble. But the billion-dollar companies that also dipped into this, nobody's going to touch them. Nobody's going to touch them. America in a nutshell. where the rich get richer by defrauding everyone else. All right. God damn. Well, if that's not depressing, I don't know what is. All right. So, that's the show today. Won't be here tomorrow. Be back on Friday. So, you know, stay tuned for that. We'll be back Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Till then, have a great day. Try to have a great day. Try to have a great tomorrow. Again, we'll not be here. So we'll see you back here on Friday. All right. So no show tomorrow, show on Friday. With that, thank you all. Like and share the stream. Oh, by the way, super chats here. Let me read some, if we had any. Okay. Let's see. A few of them actually today. No man sham. Sorry. Let's. This one's for you.
Mike Pounds.
All right. Let's see. Dango Bangle says replace Garland now. Yes, please. Let's see. Also, if you want to know just how bad the Dark Ages were, read the manga Berserk. So I hear. Let's see. Gabby Madsen says, some days I wonder why I immigrated. It would have been safer in Europe, so sad to say. Yeah, Europe's got their own problems, though. Let's be honest. The right wing is kind of everywhere in this, you know. It sucks. Let's see. Marty Darno, thank you for the very kind $2. Thanks for the show and over time. Love you all. Well, thank you. Love you all as well. Appreciate that. And the love to the community, of course. All right. So that said, that's it. We'll see you all Friday. Have a great, great night and a great day tomorrow. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you all Friday.
Big, massive dump.
Like a shark, NATO or typical.
Disappointed! I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.